Good morning. I'm Disha Prasad from the SDU, and I'm here with Sonal Gyani, Ria Sharma, Daniel Mendonca, and Nakshatra. Sonal is an LGBTQ activist and filmmaker. She is the co-founder of the youth LGBTQ initiative Yaria and Mumbai-based support group Umang, a safe space for lesbians, bisexual women, and trans persons. She has appeared in numerous talk shows, documentaries, and films. Welcome, Sonal. Ria Sharma is a TEDx speaker, LGBTQIA. They've been working towards creating awareness about issues of gender and sexuality at various platforms through workshops, advertisements, and short films. They've also been a training speaker for the youth organization, the Plain Jar, for the CAASA program. Apart from that, they've also given a Josh talk in Hindi, which went trending on number 9 some weeks back. They were a part of the collaboration between Anekant Production and House on Moon, where they produced the story Split. They've acted for the Camco Chocolate campaign for their advertisement and were a part of a documentary film, Closet, screened at the Kashish Film Festival. Nakshatra is an award-winning filmmaker and actor who features in more than 17 LGBTQ-themed projects. He's a queer entrepreneur and someone who has been vocal about the issues of the community for more than a decade. Daniel represented India at the United Nations, the first Indian intersex TEDx speaker from India. She holds a Vidyarthi Bharati Ratna Award for excellence in academics. She holds a silver medal in the Bachelor of Social Work from College of Social Work Nirmala Niketan. She has spoken on forums like the Economist Time event in Hong Kong, the Salzburg Conference in Nepal, the Amplify 18 Taiwan, and many more. She's a national and international speaker for the LGBTIQ+ rights. Her aim is to create an inclusive and safe space for all genders to reach the goal of equal world with equal opportunities. Before we officially begin, I would like to thank all of you all for being here today. There's a lot we want to know and a lot we want to learn about, and definitely a lot of excitement in the air. Let me just start off by introducing the Social and Dramatic Union, what we are, what we stand for, and the things we do. The Social and Dramatic Union is part of the demographic that we appeal to. Hence, we believe in standing up for the issues that are shunned by society. We believe in creating awareness about the issues that bother us or others like us, directly or indirectly. And all of us at SDU are extremely thrilled to have you here. Today's show is sponsored by Fisecool. Okay, I'm very excited to get this started. So without further ado, I'll move on to the first question that all of us had for y'all. I'll direct the question to one of y'all just to get the conversation starting. But all of y'all, obviously, I would like to know what all of y'all think about each and every question. So the first question is, how did all of you come to terms with your sexuality? How did you go through that journey?
So, the journey of exploring yourself and understanding your identity can be very personal and it can be very overwhelming too. So if I talk about myself, I fortunately had support through my family and through my friends. And I had the support of all the panelists who are here. And I'm actually very honored to share this panel with all the people who I can say have saved my life by being open about their identities and standing up for queer rights. I've always been very dysphoric about my gender. And there were moments where I just felt that I wanted to give up because, my body said that I was a female, but in my mind, I never felt as a girl itself. So the first moment where I actually felt dysphoric was when my dad would shave his beard and I would just want to shave along with him. That was the first time that I realized that there was something going on with my body. The second time was when I started menstruating. And people told me that it was a transformation and I would be a woman now. I would have a womb and I would have to behave as a woman, as people say. But I never had the idea of being a girl itself. So it was very difficult for me to understand that. And, puberty gets very difficult when you have such ideas in your mind, such feelings. And when I hit 16, I started exposing myself to a lot of people, a lot of talks, TEDx talks, Josh talks, and people like Sonal, Daniel, and Nakshatra have been out there before I came out. And it really helped me because when I was growing up, when I was around 10, 13, I did not have an idol to look up to and say that, yeah, I feel you, you know, that's who I am. I mean, I would have loved to do that in, if people like Nakshatra were out there in Bollywood, I would just look up to them and I would say, yeah, I feel like that. I want to have a love story like that. But I didn't have that. But after I reached around 15, 16, as I said, people like Daniel and everybody here were right there for me. And their stories really inspired me. So I think my journey of exploring myself was transformed when people became out there, people were proud about their identity. And I decided to come out to my parents. And at 8th August, I came out to my parents and they absolutely accepted me the very moment. And I always say that I'm not the ideal representation of the struggle of LGBT persons. I belong from a very privileged background. I had the opportunity to understand myself. I had the freedom. A lot of people don't have that. But fortunately, my parents were very supportive, and now they are a part of Sweekar, which is a parent support group. And they have been, trying their best to spread awareness and support as many LGBT children as possible. And, just to short it down, my struggles were made very easy by people who were out there, by supportive family, by supportive friends. It was definitely hard, but support made it easier.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad I was here to hear what you had to say. Sonal, I want to know your story as well.
Thanks for sharing that, Ria. It's hearing stories like you which really warm my heart and make me feel like, okay. In my case, when I was coming out, I'm bisexual. And I was in a school where, forget about homosexuality, but even heterosexuality. Nobody, you're not allowed to talk to boys also in my school. We were segregated, and anybody who even dare attempted to talk with boys was considered loose and everything was very disciplined and studies and this kind of attitude when I was growing up. So my first brush with really accepting my sexuality was in my college. And it was actually a very homophobic environment. I fell in love with somebody, but I faced a lot of resistance from everyone around and really damaged my relationship with the person whom I was interested in. And, before that, I think before being, I faced a lot of bullying in the institute that I was part of. And I think if I don't know which way this would have gone, but in my case, because I was bullied, I felt like, the only response to bullying was to just, reclaim whatever I was being bullied for. So, everybody was calling me a lesbian. One day I just turned around and said, yeah, I am, so what? Although I'm not lesbian, I'm bisexual. But at that time I had no, support. I was very afraid at that time to even, type lesbian bisexual into Google search engine. And when I finally did, the stuff that I found was not support groups. It was all very sexual in nature, nothing representative, And so I chose to come out for myself. The movement is 30 years old. So not like support groups weren't around, but I couldn't find them. And, this is one thing I want to highlight on this panel, that even now, it's not like people, there aren't support spaces or support groups, but there will still be people who will have no clue, that support groups exist. And they'll be in a silo, while coming out. And when I was coming out, there were no out groups. Only there was one group called Anchal at that time, ran by Geeta Kumana, that I'd heard of. So I knew only of Geeta Kumana. I had no idea of any other person. And I found that group. But I think my journey of acceptance was, I feel like not completely in my control. I faced a lot of discrimination, bullying, violence, sexual harassment, which finally led me to, be like, the only way to handle a bully is to just own up to, whatever it is. And that sort of helped me, and I joined an NGO because I mean my workplace life also didn't good. I mean I couldn't, it didn't work out because being in the closet was very challenging. I couldn't address any discrimination. That's when I decided to join an NGO which worked on LGBTQ rights, and that turned my life around. Frankly, I mean the people. This was the Humsafar Trust, which is a community-based organization, LGBT people working for LGBT. And during my course of working in the NGO, I met a lot of people just like Ria has. I mean, I found older people who are very out and proud that gave me like a lot of inspiration. I found a community. Finding lesbian, bisexual women is very hard. Okay, it's very closeted, the community. Finally found the community, was able to be out. And frankly, my journey of self-acceptance is very much tied into people like Ria or people whom I meet, and I've met now people around India and in fact around the world. And, growing up, I thought that this is a very homophobic world. Nobody will really get it. But my experience of talking to thousands of people, especially very homophobic people transitioning, has been very positive. And so, it's my sexuality and self-esteem has also definitely improved by talking to people. And here's where I'm at.
Very, very inspiring. Thank you so much. Nakshatra, what's your story?
All right. So I has always been that like shy little guy, was bullied, called names out. But I was always that ideal guy, very good at studies, activities, never had this gave opportunity to my family or parents to, to go against me or something. So I was like always a typical middle class Maharashtrian mulga, was living his life. My father was retired a couple of years back, but then he was transferred in small village in Vidarbha region, which is a Buldhana district of Maharashtra. And he was like, now you have to go, come with me there. And my life was about to go deep down in the hell because even in a place like Mumbai where I couldn't express myself, I was a bit scared to, not a lot of scared to open up my identity. I didn't even know what's happening to me. So when at 9th standard, when I was there, I felt first time sexually attracted towards one of my classmates. And surprisingly, he was a boy. And other guys in my class, they used to talk about girls. And I felt I am normal and they are not. Because that one feeling was so natural to me that it felt, I started dreaming things about him, like making families and all, like every stupid schoolboy could do, young guy. And I have done all that. And of course, sometimes the privilege can also be your downfall or disadvantage because my father was a banker and all the farmers in the village were dependent on him. So whenever I used to walk the street, people used to stand and salute. So Khandan ki izzat, speaking out, it wasn't possible there. I come from a village where there was 12 or 10 hours electricity off, load shedding, no library to read about things. And I survived those 3 years in confusion, but that confusion felt so special to me. I enjoyed that phase. And when I came back to Mumbai for further studies, I went to cyber cafe and I typed, I am a boy and I like boys. I chose, the 10 rupees or 20 rupees per hour cyber cafe they used to offer that time. I chose a particular corner so nobody can watch because I knew this is like some scene for people that I'm committing a crime by searching all these things. And I typed, and after that one search, this word called gay or homosexual, I was first time introduced to all this. And for me, there was only one thing that I wanted to know: if science is supporting this, if this is natural. And when I read some reports, I felt there are many people like me. I wanted to reach out to many people, so I joined a dating app or site that was a different picture. It turned out to be disappointment for me because it was everything about sex that time, and nobody was so open. People were still afraid to show their pictures of who they are, their identities. But I knew that okay, this is what my identity is, and I should go and talk to my parents. So I was 17 or 18. I told my family, on nice dining table dinner scene. I still remember that, and whenever I talk about it, I have goosebumps. I said, yeah, I think I like boys. I used the word think specifically because I didn't want to drop a big bomb on them saying, oh, you know what, I like boys. I just wanted to make sure that this is a bit casual. And my mother belonged to political parties. My father is completely opposite, like gentleman banker. My mother's first reaction was, I wish you were dead when you were born. And that did not surprise me at all. But what shocked me the most, my father's reaction that he couldn't even react. And that made me made me very upset. But I went to my room, I cried. I did not cry because I was upset. I cried because I was feeling very free. It felt like I was carrying like 10 kgs, 10 kgs, 20 kgs burden over my head for all these years. I finally dropped it. I was feeling very free. Then I joined places like Humsafar Trust, where I met Sonal and Gay Bombay, and I was I was knowing, exploring things, and all these meetings, events, and appearances that made me feel, there are many people like you. Everybody have issues and stories in their life, and I was getting confident slowly, and my family they were observing me, and because generally parents have this idea in mind, being gay or being LGBT is like you becoming a loser, or it's like similar to become a drug addict. That's what a lot of parents feel. And when you set a right example to them and you show them that you're good at studies, you're doing everything, and still you can be LGBTQ, then they changed their mindset. And then my mother, who wished I was dead, then she joined the Pride March with me. She walked with the banner called "I'm proud of my gay child." So this revolution happened with me. It takes time, but it took 5 years for me that I stayed with my parents under one shelter, but we were far away from each other emotionally. But finally, things came around. I think patience is the only key, and I'm glad it worked out. Yeah.
You told us about how in the beginning your mom wasn't really happy with what you said, and then she was actually walking with you at a Pride March. So that speaks volumes about your journey. Daniel, so how did you deal with everything? What's your story?
After listening to all the three of them, I think I would say that I never had to come out to the world, because I say the only time I came out was out of my mother's womb. Because the time I was born, everybody in my family knew that the child is neither a boy or a girl. And that time there was no terminology that, today we use the word intersex for many people to define. But for me, there was no term during those days. And I really did not know who I was or who this woman or a man would grow up to becoming. The first thing I remember that the doctors came and told my family, and that goes by what my mother tells me the story. She said the first thing the doctor ever came out and said, ki aapke ghar pe chakka paida hua hai. And that one word was enough to define me that, I am a eunuch. Father said, I don't want a child like that. And he was after my mother for quite years to sell me to the Hijra community because I belonged there. This was not the world made for me in terms of him. And my father never accepted me as a human being, but my mother had always pushed that thing that no matter what, I'm going to accept my child because I have given birth and all that thing. But somewhere down the line also, when I was growing up, I knew that there is a lot of hesitation for her also to understand me, and I don't blame her at all. Because, because she was not knowing how I was growing, and I was growing. Even when I was smaller, I remember when people talk about gender, sex and sexuality, even at the age of 1 and 2, I could never stand up and do toilet. I always felt like a woman and I wanted to sit and do toilet. Even when I didn't understood what this gender and sexuality was all about. Schooling was not easy for me. Growing up itself was not easy to me because I didn't come up from a big family. I came up from a very, very poor slum area in Khar. So, and everybody knew about my sex characteristics in those areas. And the only common term that ever was used was, ye to good hai, ye to chakka hai, ye to baila hai, ye to hijra hai. These kinds of terminology, still I hear it in my life. And people don't know what does that mean, but just for the sake of saying it, they say it. Because there's no other word you could define people like us or me maybe. So growing was not easy. I always say I had a confusion between my body and my mind. I always thought I was a trans because I had heard a lot of stories saying that ट्रांस पीपल, मतलब हिंदी में अगर मैं बात करूँ तो ऐसे बोलते हैं कि उनको तो नीचे कुछ नहीं होता, वो ना मर्द होते हैं ना वो औरत होते हैं. So I always associated myself with this, and because I had no space, I dropped out in 4th standard because of all the child sexual abuse I went through. And I would say that I didn't went to my child sexual abuse because I was born that way, but I went to child sexual abuse because of my femininity that came out so openly. And people always said that, I have always seen that femininity is considered weak in this so-called society, while masculinity is always considered strong. So I didn't go to the abuse because of who I was, but I went to the abuse because I felt that if you're feminine, this person automatically becomes weak. and I was abused. I was sexually abused and all that stuff. And then finally I had to drop down and, you know, understand myself. There was a lot of medical conditions that I went through, but always I thought that I was a trans. And then I joined the Hijra community. I used to beg in the trains of Bombay. I did prostitution, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I'm not ashamed of it. That's what I'm going to tell that out and proud. I'm not ashamed of doing prostitution because there was no other way of survival. So please respect sex workers. They don't do it with their choice, but because of the ignorance of the society that is created all around. Because at the end of the day, all that matters is your stomach to feed. And I had to do that. And my life changed when I was raped by 11 men at Bandra station for telling them no to have sex with them without a condom. And I was raped. And there where my life changed of knowing. The first time where Section 377 as a law that came in my mind. And finally in 2013 and 14, I represented UN. And that is the first time when the UN itself had a word which was called the I. Basically, intersex means that these are individuals or children who are born with androgynous genders or genital area, or have a mix of chromosome which cannot be typically defined in male and female. And according to UN, there are 27 various types of chromosome that a human body can have, and the variation of intersex throughout the world can be different. So if you look at India, they say after every 1,000 child, one is born intersex. So that is not a small number, right? That's not a small number. And many of the intersex children go to surgeries right at the time of birth because the parents and the doctors want to define them into one particular gender because of the society, na, ki sabse bada rog kya kahenge log. So with that thing, they want to be defined with this thing. And yeah, my life went through, but I'm very happy of not giving up. And of course, I would not say that today, but I think sure all of us on this panel, once at a time, we felt that, you know, I should commit suicide. I don't belong to this world. Or maybe the world doesn't belong to me. And that has happened to every one of us. I have tried committing suicide 5 times. But today it doesn't matter anymore what people have to think about me, because this is who I am at the end of the day. The acceptance journey itself is not easy for all of us, because it took each one of us here to maybe 20, maybe I will say 18 years till we get it. It took 18 years of our lives to accept our own selves. So I don't blame my family to come out suddenly and say, hey, chalo, accept me today only. I tell you. So yeah, so I think that's it. That's my journey of being who I am today.
That's absolutely beautiful. I don't even know what to say. Thank you for sharing that with everybody here. So do you think the concept of coming out should exist in the first place for anybody?
I mean, I think like in an ideal world, one would say that yes. I mean, there shouldn't be a need to come out, and that, I think that, of course, yeah, you want it to be equitable and you want everybody to be comfortable, but I don't think like the world is like that. And also, while saying this, I mean, I would like to say that coming out, while it's a term that's very much specifically used for the LGBTQ community, it's not an experience that is difficult to explain to a straight person. Okay. So this experience of coming out, I would say that is that, like, you have a secret. It's a very big secret, and it's a secret which requires you to cover it up. And you cover it up with one lie, and you keep covering up. And like, with every lie, the magnitude of this secret just, sort of keeps increasing. And for different people, they may have different lies. And I think that usually people want to hide something that is different about them. But I think that is this experience in being different has also added a lot of, value to my life. I think that if I was not born queer, I was not born bisexual, I didn't have this experience of sort of coming out, I don't think I would be as sensitive and as empathetic towards other, minority communities. My only, the only difference I feel about queer people and other people when it comes to this process of coming out, that it can be exhausting because you have to just continuously keep coming out, So for me, like, my journey didn't end with just, coming out to my parents. I had to come out to my family, I had to come out to my workplace, I had to come out to my media. Every time I switch the house, I have to, I may be really out, but I have to, like, weigh my, pros and cons before coming out to, maybe my maid or my broker. Do I really want to do that? And I think like this because my gender and sexuality is something that is continuously with me. And this is a secret, which I don't want it to be a secret. Even after being out of the secret, you continue to, carry that weight. So, largely, yes, I wish this was the case, but it's not.
I completely agree with what Sonal said, that, coming out is not just a single process, but you have to come out literally every day of your life. And I definitely feel that, we live in a heteronormative society. We feel that binaries are what exist. And we are still, sticking to that sort of ideology where we tag everything in binaries: man, woman, female, male, and, binaries like this, which are very problematic. And I feel that, yeah, definitely, because these binaries and binaries exist and we have a heteronormative society, what we could definitely do is to educate people and make them aware that the reality is not heteronormative. The reality is that there are more than one or two or three sexualities. There can be so many ranges of sexuality, and different sexualities and your gender could intersect. And people can have different dynamics of their identity, and it's absolutely okay. And so, definitely, I also agree that every heterosexual person could also have to, come out about their relationships. We still live in a society where intercaste marriages are not allowed. If we marry someone else from a different religion, we don't, people don't agree to that. So I think that basic empathy and basic respect is what we need to understand. And as Sonal beautifully said, that coming out is not just about extend to many people who are just hiding their identity because someone considers them wrong. So yeah.
Nakshatra, what do you have to say about it?
Okay, I would like to go and take this in Hindi because if a parent watches this who don't understand English, so this might be useful for them. We live in a society, हम एक समाज में रहते हैं जहाँ पे बच्चा पैदा होते ही ये सोचते चलो ये खानदान का वंश है. बच्चा 1.5 साल का नहीं होगा तो उसके लिए रिश्ता ढूंढ लेते हैं मजाक में, चलो इसका बाजू वाली लड़की के साथ, मामा की लड़की के साथ शादी करा देंगे. उसको तुम पूछो, ask them what their identity is, let them grow. So this feeling of taken for granted is horrible. So our sexualities, they take it for granted. You don't have to come out because you are already taken for granted by your parents and society that you're going to marry a boy. You're a man in the future, you're going to have a boyfriend. And when they take me for granted, like I'll be bringing a bahu in future, मैं बहू लेके आऊंगा घर पे, मेरे लिए वो disgusting fact है सोचने लिए कि मैं वो कर ही नहीं पाऊंगा, because I am not that. So that's why I have to come out. In fact, on today's date, we have so many gay men marrying women. And the problem is not they are not able to come out to the family. The problem ये है कि वो खुद को coming out नहीं कर पा रहे. That is self-acceptance. I always tell people, forget about coming out to society or your parents. The first thing that you should do is come out to yourself. Accept yourself, because that's the biggest challenge. अगर ये तुम easily कर जाओगे तो आगे का काफी आसान है. लोगों को लगता है कि how society will react, how my parents will react. Once you fight your own battle, everything else is easy. Very, very easy. So this is the thing. This feeling of taken for granted is horrible. मुझे पता है कि बिल्डिंग में खेलने भी जाओ नीचे तो वो मैच द पेयर होता है, तेरी वाली ये मेरी वाली वो, एंड दिस इज हॉरिबल बिकॉज तुम मुझे किसी लड़की के साथ मैच करो तो भी मैं बोलूंगा कि यार वो मेरे चॉइस का, ही इज नॉट माय टाइप. आई विल स्टिल गो एंड बी चूजी अबाउट दैट, बट यू फोर्सिंग योर टाइप ऑफ सेक्सुअलिटी ऑन मी. डोंट फोर्स थिंग्स ऑन मी, लेट मी चूज. और जब तक मैं बोलूंगा नहीं कि मुझे क्या पसंद है, हमारा समाज थोपते जाएगा. भले वो सेक्सुअलिटी हो या रीति रिवाज हो, संस्कार के नाम पे सब थोपा जाता है. दैट्स व्हाई आई फील कमिंग आउट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
Okay. It makes so much sense hearing all this from you all. Daniel.
For me, when it comes to coming, like Disha, you started saying, straight. And my first question is, if you are straight, that doesn't make me crooked. So this language of inclusivity matters so much, because you're like Sonal said, you're not just coming out, you're coming out to so many people, but it is also sometimes sad that you're coming out to your own community 10 times. Like there are a lot of questions that has always come to me as a person. If you consider yourself as she, then why don't you dress up like women? Why don't you go for a section surgery? Why your breast surgery? Or why don't you act like one? And I'm like, these are not definitions of women. Why can't I just be the way I want to be? I don't want to go for section surgeries. I don't want to be who I want. I don't want to do my breast surgeries, but I still want to be called as she. What's the problem in coming out? So why at the first place you need the concept of coming out? I don't want to come out every time I go on. Like, I know I'm finding a place for myself, and every time they look at me and saying, "आप वो है," and I'm like, "वो क्या होते हैं?" So, and the hesitation of saying that you belong to the community, I'm like, आपको ये कहना है कि मैं किन्नर हूँ, तो I'm like, yes, मैं हूँ. उसमें क्या है? I am as normal as any human being like you are. At the end of the day, मैं तो हूँ इंसान ही ना. आप घर इंसान को ही देंगे ना. So that coming out at every point, from the bank statements, your Aadhaar card. When I go for an Aadhaar card and say I want to have another gender, and they look at me and they say, "Why? You look so perfect to me." So the concept of perfectness as a human body should remove out.
You made so much sense. So the abolishment of 377 brought with it a wave of emotions that everybody felt different emotions. Everybody felt, some people felt almost contrasting emotions. So I would like to ask each of you where you were when you heard the announcement, what your first reaction was. Nakshatra.
Okay, when the first decision came that went against us, that reversed the Delhi High Court's judgment, it was my birthday, December 11. Trust me, and we were expecting it to be a positive one. And I was wearing new shirt that my father gifted me. We ordered birthday cake, bada wala. Trust me, nobody went and got that birthday cake, paid in the full amount. Horrible. I was pretty young that time, and so many things that you plan. It's not just that you don't get the right to have sex. 377 is not about this consensual private space where you have sex. It's about our self-respect. It's about my identity, that society or this country or this judiciary system is, accepting me the way I am or considering me. At least, thode bahut part me, he's a equal citizen. Though I will not say equal, conditions apply, though, because there's a huge battle to fight for other rights. But this is like, a very good beginning, And when this positive one came, I was sitting next to my dad and I was watching Arnab Goswami and he was screaming as usual. And that time he had taken a very pro stand for that. So I was watching that. I was watching his channel. So he was screaming. And when he said, it's done, 377 is gone. It was everything that came in. My tears already here, but when my father was sitting next to me, he patted lovingly on my back. I just
Nakshatra, I'm sure you must have screamed more than Arnab Goswami then.
I know, I cried. I cried. Then I called my girlies and my guys in a conference call. Then I screamed, and then we went to party. But it was everything because in between I lost my mom, and she was. She had this dream to see these things go. So it was a very emotional roller coaster for me finally, this even a negative one taught me a lot. But here sitting talking about this privileged or happy people, this 377 has taken a lot of victims. People who are not even here, they're not even in this world. There were no internet, there was no Instagram, no WhatsApp or news channels to talk about this issue. And we can't even imagine what trauma or what difficult struggle they have gone through. So maybe that it feels, a lot of people complain. I will just put the last point that a lot of gay people come and complain. We don't have marriage right. We don't have adoption right. I said we at least have this. Consider the community before 20, 30 years, what they had to go through. You're at least fortunate enough to enjoy this, right? And there's a long battle to go.
I came out in 2016, so I wasn't with the community. Supporting the community before that, and I'm really sad about it. But when in 2018 it was decriminalized, I was really overwhelmed because I had just started talking about my journey openly. In 2016, I came out to my parents, and immediately after that, I started talking to people about it. In our own college, I took sensitization. I was just 17, but I was taking sensitization for people who were 16 years of age, just through my journey. And I had just started, openly talking about it. And for me, it was definitely a transformation. And that was the time when I realized how hard it would have been for people who had been struggling for it throughout these years. Because I, at this point of time, cannot imagine this, this law to be in action again. I just can't. So, I I cannot even imagine the struggles that struggles that Sonal, Nakshatra, and Daniel would have had. Because they have been working in the field throughout. And so, I mean, I was at that point of time, I actually made an audio. I actually made a video where I said that I'm really thankful for people who have fought for us, and society would be a better place to live in for the next future generation, for me, who are newbies and who want to bring about a change in the society. But this is only possible because of people who have been working in the field. So I was really, really overwhelmed, and I was really thankful for people who stood by us. That's it.
Sonal, how did you feel?
So, I mean, I'll go back to even Nakshatra, like how Nakshatra mentioned the 2013 verdict actually. So I mean, I was working with the NGO. I had been training people on Section 377. I had been taking a lot of sessions by that time on Section 377. So I sort of knew that if the judgment comes and it's a negative, we will have a review petition and then we will have a curative petition. I was aware of the process. And but I mean, I had thought that 2013 is going to be, that particular time is going to be a positive judgment. So I had actually, got almost like a feeling of a football match. So I had got a big screen in the office and called all the community members, come and maybe it'll be positive. So we'll all feel very great. But, it was like the judgment was magnified in front of all of us. And, it was like a negative judgment. And I immediately saw everybody crying. And every senior of mine from the NGO was not in office. They were all at the Delhi, they were in the High Court, Supreme Court. And I suddenly saw everyone around me cry, And there were like multiple media houses, almost 20, 30 of them in the office. And they needed somebody to speak, So I immediately started talking because I knew the pros and cons of the judgment. And everybody around me was crying. And I remember that, my friend Praful came after, I think, 2-3 hours, and I was like, where are you? I needed you today. Because nobody was in the place to get onto a debate, because first of all, you got a negative judgment and they put you slam into a debate, where people are like, oh, very great, and you don't deserve this. And, you have to keep your calm and composure and fight it out. Especially because that the community is hearing you and somebody has to stand up and do their job. So I sort of didn't cry at that time. And moving forward, I realized that, okay, this judgment, one of the things that the judgment says is that there aren't enough cases. And so, I went back to understand why aren't there enough cases, to understand the legal system. And I actually very closely worked with the community to understand what I realized it's a catch-22 situation. Why are enough not, cases being reported and fighting, being on the media. And I think my personality changed. I became very serious. I think till then I was very happy and little, approachable. But I think after that, largely my personality became very unapproachable. For people who don't know me, and Nakshatra, Daniel know me, but outside people just think I'm really scary. And, a lot of cases went in. I followed the case very soon. The review petition was negative. So, curative petition. And I did not think it would take so much time. It took 5 years for the, final court judgment to come in. And I was in the Republic TV sitting with Arnab Goswami. And actually the judgment was supposed to come at 10:30 and it came out at 11:30. There was somebody else supposed to be on the show. And because it got delayed, I was the only queer activist sitting with him. There was nobody else in the showroom. Okay. It was just me and Arnab and a couple of people, from around. And then he started screaming, yelling, like Nakshatra said, oh, we've got it, it's done. And then he got up and it's there on video. He came up and he shook my hand. Because, the past 3-4 days I had been on primetime debate every single day, fighting some bigot or the other. And then he just got up and he just congratulated me. And just that's it, I started crying, And he asked for a comment and I am crying and emotional and I'm like, wow, this is very emotional. It was a kind of culmination and it felt like a, personal victory, especially because of the cases. And it was so beautiful because I was in the showroom and there were 6 screens in front of me. And all the activist friends who have worked on the judgment, I could see everybody on TV. Very emotional, very powerful. And I swear, I think that I changed for the better even with the negative judgment.
So, in a way, all of y'all are parts of why the judgment was passed. Y'all, because of how y'all were almost fearless in yourself, with yourself. I think that was a huge reason the judgment was passed ultimately.
I do have a funny story to share as well as emotion during this time because so my mother's birthday is 8th September. And the judgment came on 6th September. Just tomorrow, 2 years we'll celebrate. And so you have mostly all relatives coming in the house just 2 days before because it's my mom's birthday and it's also the feast in Christianity. So all these people were at home and they knew about me, my work, and also they always ignore talking about my sexuality and everything. And I'm fine with it. Unless and until you don't come in my personal face, I'm fine. I and my mom were cooking in the kitchen and there was this whole everybody out there, and even they didn't want to speak about it, but there was nothing because all news channel was on to that judgment thing. And the judgment came out saying that having consensual of same sex is not a crime in this country. And I'm cooking, I was listening and my mother says, हाँ बहुत बड़ा काम कर लिया जैसे इससे पहले तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का परमिशन लेके सब करते थे ना. So I was about to laugh and then I was like I just kept myself calm and I said, and I thought about this. Yeah, it was true. I never went to the court to take permission if I had to do something with my partner. And then she said, another moment she said, with this judgment it was better that there was civil rights and there were other rights and that would come. And I thought that mummy, it will come eventually and all. And then I sat with her to see the TV and there was one statement that came up, after they were reading down what happened, the entire story of the judgment. And there was one thing that came up. And that was the pause of my moment and the entire silence in the room where my whole family is sitting. And the Supreme Court judge said this, that the entire society owes an apology to the LGBTIQ community and their family for the way they have been treated and denied their rights for so many years ago. And that was my moment, and all my family members was quiet, and the only clap that came was out of my mother, and she hugged me and she said, I'm so proud of you. And I hugged her back saying, I am proud of you too for not giving up on me. And that was my moment. And in the evening, I was on a debate challenge. I chose not to go to some English channel and go to some regional channel because I wanted to represent and I went to a regional channel where I was the only LGBTQ person surrounded by one Hindu, one Muslim, and one Christian, and who were debating against me saying it is unnatural. And I asked them only one question: how do you define unnatural? And they said, it's not an act of God. I said, no, that's not the definition of unnatural. The definition of unnatural is when the majority of the people feels that something is not right, that becomes unnatural in this country. And that is your point of view. That's not unnatural for me, because everything that nature creates in itself is natural. As a country, if we believe in the diversity of food, clothing, languages, we also have to believe in the diversity of gender. There is no other option to it. Because diversity also includes gender, sexuality, orientation, and sex characteristic. So I think my moment was 6th September, where is many of the people who are unaware about Section 377 and LGBTIQ rights were aware, and many parts, and that gave a strongness to a lot of people to come out to their own families and say, no more, it's a silence. This is what I am.
That's beautiful. I think a lot of people forget the fact that it's not inclusion despite diversity. It's inclusion celebrating diversity. I think all of us tend to forget the fact that we celebrate diversity and not tolerate it.